Welcome to the Fit-ish Dad podcast. I am your host, Caleb Bowers. Hey guys, thanks for joining me today on the Fit-ish Dad podcast. I got an exciting episode for y'all. We are going to talk about, or we're going to begin to talk about running gear and everything that goes involved in this super inexpensive sport that we have chosen. At least that's what people tell us, that do running, it's pretty much free. Well, they trick you when they say that, because it's actually it can be very expensive, and it's really hard for it not to be, because there's so much cool technology and stuff out there, and you just want all of it. Because if you just get that new pair of shoes, or that running hat, or that new running belt, that's what's keeping you from running a sub-3 marathon, even though the best you've ever done is 4.5 hours. But that's beside the point, not speaking from experience. But excited to dive into one of my favorite things. I'm a big gearhead when it comes to anything. I love all the different things, like I said, the different technologies, and just the history of the sport and how far it's come. So we're going to dive in today. But before we do that, just a few things. Number one is we now have some merch available. I posted about it on my Instagram, and I'm going to post it on my other socials as well. But there is a new Thrive Media merch online store for not just my show, but for all the Thrive Media shows. And I'll put a link right here. Just cutting in here to interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to let you know that apparently I cannot add the link to the video, but the link will be down below in the description. So go check out the store, grab a t-shirt, get a mug, support the show. Thank you very much. And that's how you can support the show. Is, obviously you can watch it, you can like the videos, you can subscribe, you can do all those things, and that really helps us with YouTube. But if you want to directly support me and work on getting some better lighting, a new camera, whatever it may be, I'm really trying to pour any resources I can into building this out to be really just a world-class, production. I don't want it just to be some weird guy in, his basement, even though I'm in my office, but you get what I'm saying. So go check that out. Right now we have like a Yeti tumbler, and also just a regular t-shirt, fairly inexpensive. We didn't want to do anything wild. I do want to come out with like some running specific merchandise in the future, just trying to figure out some things and designs. And we don't want to have to charge, an arm and a leg, because we want people to be able to buy our stuff, use it, wear it, and promote the show. But go check that out if you can. Buy something, help a guy out, because as you're going to see, I have a problem with buying shoes. I need more running shoes, and I want to tell you about them. So help me buy them, help me pay for them, and I'll tell you which ones you need to go pay for, so you don't have to buy all of them, so you can be more focused on your purchases and way more fiscally responsible than I have been since I started running. But also, I'm going to start a new thing, and every episode I'm going to begin with a little devotional and a prayer before we dive into anything. It's just something that was really put on my heart as I was praying this week, and also preparing for this episode. I'm going to share just a scripture, and I'm going to make it somewhat focused on health and fitness, but also not just the physical health, but the spiritual health, and how it all ties in together, and how we can use that in our daily lives. So today I want to read out of 1 Corinthians chapter 9, and I'm reading out of a New Living Translation Bible. This is actually a FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes athlete Bible that I got because I sponsored a kid for a camp. And so they gave me a Bible, and I kept it because free Bible. I guess not really free, but 1 Corinthians chapter 9 in verse 26 and 27, it says, "So I run with purpose in every step. I am not just shadow boxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified." That's one of my favorite verses, especially tying it into the physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health, because it speaks to all those on different levels. Obviously, it's really easy to see off the bat how it speaks to your physical health when it's talking about, I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. And that's talking about literally fighting your flesh, your actual flesh, this skin flesh, when it comes to, not letting yourself pig out, not letting yourself be lazy, not letting yourself just grow to be obese and unhealthy and not taking care of yourself. It's obviously talking about that just on the surface, but when you dive deeper into its meaning, it's not just referring to your physical health. It's also talking about your spiritual health, because he says later, "Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified." And I really relate to that, because as someone who talks to people, I really have to make sure I check myself, because I don't want to sit here and tell y'all one thing, and then on the back end in my own personal private life, just be living like crap and miss the mark myself. And even though I help so many people hit their marks, I miss the mark myself physically and spiritually, and I just let myself down. So it's important that we remain disciplined and we remain focused on the goals at hand. And I'm not talking about running a 6-minute mile. I'm talking about the goals that God has set before us, on seeing the lost saved, on seeing lives changed, and also on just the dreams and desires he's placed in our hearts, the purpose that he has put us here for. So with that, I just want to pray real quick, and then we'll dive into the good stuff. Dear Lord, take off my hat, sorry. Dear Lord, I thank you for today. And I thank you for the opportunity that I have to just come and share all of my love for running and everything that you have put in my heart and the desires that you have given me. Lord, I ask that anybody listening to this would be blessed by what I have to share, that would be blessed by the word that you have given us. And Lord, I ask that if there's any need of any listener, or if there's any healing needed or anything at all, Lord, I thank you that you care for every single one of us, and that you hear their prayer now, and that you heal them, and that you reassure them that you will provide them whatever that they need according to your riches and glory in Christ Jesus. Lord, I love you and I thank you. And we thank you, Lord, that you died on the cross for my sins, that I might be made the righteousness of Jesus Christ. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So let's dive into the good stuff. So there's, when it comes to running gear, there's just so much. So I'm just gonna go. Let's see. Let's start. Obviously, there's running clothes. Shirts. I mean, you can even break that down to shirts, shorts, hats, whatever it is. There's all sorts of different technologies and stuff there. There's watch. Your running watch. That like I said, I have a Garmin Phoenix 7X. And there's just so many brands there. We'll have to do another whole episode on that, because that's even getting into the watch stuff is just wild, because there's just so many options and so much technology involved in there. It can be pretty overwhelming. There's like hydration and nutrition. Obviously, there's like nutrition in terms of like gels and different things like that, but even just like how you carry your water if you're going on a long run, all this, like, are you going to wear a vest with flask? Are you going to have a handheld? Are you going to wear a belt with a water bottle? Are you going to, all these, there's so many different things. But I want to start off with my favorite, and that is shoes. we're going to talk about running shoes. And there is a lot to cover. So I'm going to dive into the history of running shoes real quick, just to, just in case you don't know anything, just to give you kind of an idea of the long history of how far we've come in running shoes. So in my notes here, I just wrote down a few things, just a little key points in the running, because we could spend a whole like 3 hours talking about just the history of running shoes from like their earliest iterations to now, but we're just going to hit some key points. It's kind of hard to tell where exactly they started, but it's pretty agreed upon that one of the first forms of running shoes, running specific shoes, was around the early 1800s in England, I believe northern England. There's just different versions of pretty much spiky dress shoes. So they put little spikes like through a dress shoe, an Oxford type shoe, and that's what people would use to run to grip the dirt, because tracks and everything like that, rubber was not very wide. I don't even know if rubber was even invented. If it was very expensive and not widely used. Everything was leather, and they would put spikes, almost like tacks, through the shoe, through the sole of the shoe to the bottom, and that's what they would use to grip the dirt to help them run better. And this, I thought, was just kind of a fun thing. Reebok was one of the first running shoe brands to start producing running shoes out there, which I was surprised by that. Out of all the brands, Reebok is out of all the brands, Reebok is one of the only brands that I have never tried a shoe in, just because I just don't see them a lot at the stores closest to me, and just have never thought about it. But I thought that was interesting to know. And then in 1960s or 50s, and then really in the 60s is when Nike was created and jumped in. And from then, the sport and the technology of the shoes has just grown exponentially. From the foams and the rubber, to the materials used, to carbon plates, all this crazy things. And Nike has been kind of on the bleeding edge of a lot of that innovation. Even though I'm honestly not a big Nike running shoe fan, I have a couple here with me, but they're not my favorite. But they definitely, like, all the technology that I love in the shoes that I do love were first thought of and put on the market by Nike. And then some other brands just did some things and added them to their shoe, and I like them better. But Nike came out with it first, and they really are do a lot of, I'm very grateful for Nike and their contribution to my closet, because not just in running shoes, but all shoes. I have a lot of Nike shoes that are not running shoes. But that's just a short history of just a few key points. You can go look it up, because I said there's a lot. You want to talk about all the brands. Adidas and Puma were created by two friends that were creating literally competing running shoes, or shoe companies at the same time. And that was even prior to Nike. And then there was a big boom in the 80s with running. It says that marathon entries went up by 1,800%. And then Brooks was created, and they, jumped on the market, helping with overpronation, which has to do with your ankle flexation when you run. But there's just all sorts of stuff, and how each brand jumped on the market and everything like that, and they're where they started. Very cool to dive in if you like to nerd out like I do. I like to just know things. It's kind of my thing. My friend sent me something. He says, I have a beard and I know things. It's what I do. But just a few things before we dive into shoes. There is just a couple of different specifications that, if you go look at shoes online, you'll see, if you hear anybody talk about them, that you'll want to know. And two of those things are the heel drop and the different foams used in the shoe. So the heel drop is, hold on, let me grab, this is one of the shoes we'll talk about. This is the Saucony Kinvara Pro, but the heel drop is, they measure from the heel to the toe right here, pretty much the highest to the lowest point, and they measure in millimeters. So I believe this one is 42 millimeters here, and oh gosh, I believe this is like, so this is 42. This is probably like 36, because I believe it's a 6 or 8 millimeter heel to toe drop, meaning the difference in height from the heel to the toe. And the difference in the heel to toe drop is for a few different reasons. They have everywhere from ultras are zero drop shoes. That's what their big thing is, even though they started to come out with some minimal drop shoes. And then you have the higher, a lot of like some racing shoes have like 10 to 12 millimeter drops. I think 10 may be the highest I've ever seen, but I'm sure there may be some out there that I don't know about that's higher. But the whole thing with the heel drops is for different reasons. Like a low drop, you'll have more ankle flexation. So if you have like a zero drop shoe, meaning that the heel and the toes are on the same levels when you're standing on the ground, that means your ankle is going to flex more. Pretend like this is your ankle when you're running, because obviously there's more room for it to run. A higher drop means more knee flexation. So if your foot's like this, your knee is going to correspondingly be flexed a lot more as it's pounding the ground. So because of those two things, and there's some effect on cadence, like a lower drop shoe, you're probably going to have a higher cadence, meaning your feet are going to turn over quicker, just due to the more natural running gait. But the biggest thing I think when it comes to just like your average person, unless you're like an elite runner, or running, incredibly fast, where that drop really comes into play is obviously personal preference. So like a lot of it, you're just gonna have to try, um, and find what you like. But low drops, if you have knee pain, if you have knee pain, or a lot of stress and pain in your tendons and in your knees, you might do better with a lower drop shoe, since it puts more flexation on the ankle and off of the knee. Or if you have Achilles or calf, like, and a lot of times if you have a lot of tightness and stress in that lower calf, that is from your Achilles, and you might do better from a higher drop shoe, since it takes that ankle, that flexation off of the ankle and off of that foot, and puts it more on the knee. So just depending on what you need for your body, those are a few different things to be mindful of. And then obviously, there's different, I say obviously, it's really not that obvious. There's different types of foams in a shoe. So to go back to the Kinvara Pro here, this is, I believe, a supercritical EVA foam. So there's a PEBA foam, PEBA. There's a TPU foam and an EVA foam. And the difference between those things is a PEBA is a very soft, very responsive, meaning it's very springy and bouncy. So even though it's soft, it doesn't like, when you squish something and it like slowly comes back up. That PEBA, you squish it and it quickly responds and bounces back to hold its original form. PEBA is very lightweight, very responsive, very expensive. It's the foam that's going to be most of your race day shoes. And if you see a shoe that's like $200, $250, $300, $400, $500, yes, they have those. More than likely it's because of that PEBA foam, because it's expensive and it's not durable. It doesn't last very long. So it's really annoying because it's so wonderful, but it's so expensive, and yet it doesn't last long. So you really want to, if because I love my PEBA foam shoes, and I want to run in them all the time, but you can't, because it will your wallet will hate you. And then there's the TPU. The TPU foam, I actually don't think I have any TPU foam shoes. But the TPU foam is, it's a lot more cushiony It's very dense. It's very heavy. And it's a lot less expensive than the Piba, but it's very cushiony, very like the Triumph or the Saucony Triumph line. I think those are a TPU. I don't have any, like I said, I don't have any of those just from personal preference. But if you need a lot of stability, if you need a lot of comfort in your shoe, like if it's especially like a lot of people who are just starting out who may have like the pains and the growing pains and the tendon pains and the muscle pains as your body's getting into it and used to it, highly suggest finding a shoe with a TPU foam just because it will help. Because like I said, it's, and by heavy, like it's funny because we say heavy, but I mean, we're talking about ounces heavy. Like a race day shoe might be 8 to 9 ounces, and a heavy TPU trainer, you're talking like 13, 14 ounces. So, I mean, it's not something that you're going to incredibly notice. But I mean, you will if you start running faster for longer distances, you'll start noticing the difference. But for your average person, probably not. And so my favorite shoes that I can run in forever are heavier than some of my race day shoes that I could not run as long in. And so, like I said, it's all personal preference. But if you have, just getting started and really need help with support, highly suggest the TPU. And then there's the EVA. And the EVA is kind of the middle ground where it's soft and responsive, similar, not as responsive, but somewhat responsive to the Piba, but still highly cushioned, not as highly cushioned as the TPU. It's more durable, but not as durable as the TPU, but it's more durable than the Piba. And the pricing is roughly, it can be anywhere because there's different levels of the EVA foam, which we'll talk about in a second. So the pricing can be a little bit more varied from low end to high end. But those are the three, types of foam that are being used now. Like I said, technology is growing and changing quickly. And then we get into the supercritical foams. And supercritical, what that means is, and that's only for PIBA and EVA. And it's not a different type of foam, but it's the process of how the foam is created. And so supercritical, what it means is that some type of gaseous mixture is injected and added and mixed with the binding process of the PIBA or EVA foam. And what that does is it just really heightens that responsiveness and the cushionedness and all that sort of fancy scientific words that I just said. But the supercritical foams, the PIBAs and the EVAs, it just heightens those responsive and cushionedness of the foam and also makes it even more pricey. I have a couple of supercriticals that we'll look at today. But those are just like the lowdown of the foams and what they mean and what they're for. So let's dive into the different types of shoes. So I have it written down here. I mean, there's so many classifications and sub-classifications. I just want to hit like the main ones, especially the ones that I have. But there's daily trainers, there's super trainers, there's max cushion, which I feel like max cushion is kind of a subgenre because there's max cushion daily trainers and max cushion super trainers and max cushion race shoes. But that was one when I was doing my research that it said stability shoes, and then race shoes, and then obviously you get into the other category of trail shoes, of which they also have their own daily trainers, super trainers, and race day shoes. So let's start with daily trainers. My current favorite daily trainer that I have, and it's actually the only one I would classify as a true daily trainer that I have, is my New Balance Rebel V3, I believe, version 3. It's whatever the latest one is. I believe it's version 3, maybe version 4 out now. But this is my favorite go-to shoe right now. They're pretty cool, and like I said, you can tell I use them a lot. This is a I don't believe it's a supercritical, but it is an EVA foam. It is for a trainer is super lightweight. And the foam is super light, super responsive, and super comfortable. I've probably put about 200 miles on it now, and I don't feel a single difference from the first time I put it on. It's super breathable. It's if I were to recommend a shoe to just an average person for their first shoe, I would recommend this. And it's actually the least expensive shoe out of all the shoes I'm going to show you, which is wild to me. I think it brand new retails. Oops, brand new. It retails for like $130 or something like that, which isn't cheap. I know, but when it comes to running shoes, it's pretty inexpensive. Um, because especially for the quality that you're going to get. And I absolutely love them. They're so comfortable. Um, so that is my first daily trainer. The drop on them, sorry, I threw them, so I'm not going to go get them. The drop on them, I believe, man, I should have wrote all these down. Because there's so many shoes here, I can't remember which one's for which. But the drop on them, I believe, is somewhere around six. So it's which is a medium drop. Uh, so it helps give me, because I don't have knee pain. I get tightness in my Achilles. So it helps kind of on, especially using them daily, on longer runs and stuff like that, helps kind of keep and fight off that tightness I get in my Achilles. So I love those. Another daily trainer I don't have with me, but I have used is the Brooks Glycerin line. It's the Brooks Glycerin. I think we're on the 22. We may be on the, I think they're going to release the 23. And that's usually like when I say a number, it's like the version of the shoe. Because they usually release one every year, or every other year, but most are every year. But the Brooks Glycerin line is a great one to use. It's more, I would say, it's not as like, it's a heavier shoe. I believe it's an EVA. It may be a TPU, but I think it's an EVA foam. A little bit heavier, not as breathable as the Rebels, but still super comfortable. It's a max cushion, and the stability on it's also very good, even for a max cushion shoe. Because a lot of times with max cushion, because of the cushion, your foot it's not at the foam is not as stable because it didn't hold you as well, but it's still very stable. Another thing I forgot to mention is it's something to look at with shoes. Is we'll grab that Kenvar again. Is your toe box? The toe box is the box where the toes go. There's anywhere from narrow to wide toe boxes, and depending on your feet and what's comfortable to you, you need to pay attention when you're looking for shoes for different things. I like a wide toe box because I have narrow feet, but when I run, my toes like to splay out like fingers, and I like to have room to let them breathe, to not be choked up in there. It feels good, feels better on my feet after I run. So those New Balances have a pretty roomy toe box. The Glycerin, not as roomy, but I said that's personal preference. You can look them up all online. And most the Brooks Glycerin are probably at your local, probably not Academy, but Dick's, or if you have a local running, they're very popular. More than likely, you can find them locally. The Rebels, probably a little bit harder. I had to order them offline, but it just depends. You'll have to look around and do some research on your local area and what's available to you. But next, let's talk about some super trainers. So I have two pairs of super trainers here with me. Let's see. So the first one you're probably going to recognize. Sorry, dropped him. First one is like I said, the Saucony Kinvara Pro. And what a super trainer is it's a halfway between a daily trainer and a race day shoe. So usually what it means is it takes the specifications, or it takes something that's normally a daily trainer. So the Kinvara, the Saucony Kinvara is one of their daily trainer lines, and they say Pro. So that makes it better than the regular one. And what they did is they took the Kinvara, they, like I said, they give it a big, massive stack. So it's like a 42 millimeter heel stack. So it's nice and thick and cushiony. And they added, you can see right there, they added a carbon plate. What that means is a plated shoe means that there is some type of plate, foot plate, that goes along the center of the shoe here. This is not the plate, it's just paint or like a coloring, but like that's where the plate would be. And I think there's only two kind that I know of. There's a carbon plated, which is very expensive, which is what you find in most of your race day shoes. And there's a nylon plated, which nylon is not as stiff as carbon. It's not as expensive as carbon. But some of, like I have a pair here that we'll talk about that have a nylon plate in it, just to give you a little bit of support. And the point of the plate is, number one, it makes the shoe really stiff, but it makes it a lot more responsive. So like it does, so when you're running, it propels you forward because that plate is snapping and it's literally pushing you forward. It forces you to run faster at a higher cadence. So which is why it's popular in race day shoes when you're trying to run. But it is hard on your legs because, like I said, it doesn't allow your foot to flex like it wants to. So it really puts a strain on your muscles and on your feet. So I do not recommend wearing them all the time because you can get yourself hurt that way. I know people that wear nothing but plated shoes and it works out for them. Like I said, it's to each their own personal preference. I do not recommend it, and also they're expensive. And so if you got it like that and it works for you, go for it. But if you're not so sure, do not go for it, because just don't. Just take my advice. But the Kinvara, I mean, they're okay. I got them for Christmas because they came out and I was like, oh, I want to try those. And they're solid. They're very, like I said, they're very thick. And I can't feel the ground at all when I wear these, which some people like. Some people don't want to feel it. I like to feel the ground a little bit. It helps me gauge when I'm running, gauge pace, gauge how I'm feeling, all that sort of thing. I said it's not incredibly responsive, but it's very stable even for being a high stack shoe. It's got the plate in it, so it kind of, I mean, honestly, it almost seems like it fights against itself because of how thick it is and how stiff the foam is. It'd be a great stability shoe, but the plate makes it really aggressive and not stable. So it kind of contradicts itself, but it's a very solid shoe. Nothing to complain about. I just personally didn't like it that much. But I'm sure there's people out there. It just seems like there's just shoes out there and they're not cheap. I think they're like $200. So, or 180 at the least. There's just better options out there for this money or for less money. Which brings me to my second one, which is my favorite super trainer, which follows along with my Rebels, and that's my New Balance Super Comp Trainer. So as you can tell, they look almost the same. This is, so the New Balance, their elite race shoe is the New Balance Super Comp Elite SC, I think what it is. I don't know. Something. It's Super Comp Elite, which is their race day shoe. The Rebel is their daily trainer, and this is the middle ground. I love wearing these shoes for long runs, when I do my long runs, because they have that same foam, the same things that I love. And it depends, like if, you know, I'll wear my Rebels or I may wear these. So this has a little bit of a higher stack. It's got that same, this has a super critical EVA. So it's a little bit more responsive. And it also has a plate, as you can see right here, has a plate, which makes it a little bit stiffer. So when I'm doing a long run. It helps give me that cushion, that response, but also push me along, especially when my legs start to get tired, towards the end of the run. Helps me keep paces up, everything like that. It's a great shoe. I couldn't run in it every day. I know people that do, but I said I love this in my lineup. I wear them, I probably only wear them like 2 or 3 times a month. Like I said, during long runs. So they're not cheap. I think they're about $200. But they'll last me a while because I only use them for those things. And so I try to keep them nice and pretty. As you can tell, they look a lot nicer. I've had them for about the same time, but they look a lot nicer than my Rebels, because I'm like, my Rebels, I'm like, yeah, these are, inexpensive when it comes to running shoes. So I just get some more. So I tear them suckers up. But I love these. Highly recommend these. Like I said, out of the super trainers, they're my favorite. And then moving on, Max Cushion. I don't have any Max Cushions. Like I said, Max Cushion is weird because it's not like a I would say a genre or a type within itself. It's more of a subgenre. Like I said, there's Max Cushion daily trainers. There's Max Cushion super trainers, like those super comp trainers. There's Max Cushion race day shoes. But it said, Max Cushion is something you'll hear a lot. Stability shoes. I don't have any stability shoes because I don't need any. But I know Asics, it starts with a K. I can't pronounce it. Kiamao, something like that. But Asics, Brooks, New Balance have really solid stability. I think Hoka may have some. But if you look it up, if you have, like I said, if you have some joint problems, if you have some ankle problems and you need more stable running shoes, look those up. They have like I said, they probably have that TPU foam where it's dense. It's very cushioned. It's not really squishy because it has a little bit more of a firm hold to help support you and keep those ligaments and keep those little movements stable as you run. But those are a couple brands you can check out: Asics, Brooks, and New Balance, that have very good stability shoes. And most of the time on their websites, you can go, they'll have a shoe finder option where you go in and say, they'll ask you, are you going to be on trails or on pavement? Are you running, what are you running for? What do you look for in a shoe? Do you need stability? Do you have fallen arches? All this sort of thing. And they'll give you direct recommendations. So I highly suggest, and that's on, I think every running shoe website I've ever been to has had that. So look for the shoe finder. Usually it's in like one of their drop down things. You might be able to Google New Balance shoe finder and it'll pop up. Highly suggest using that if you're not sure, even after all this. But moving on to race day shoes. Well, actually, you know what? I want to talk about a shoe that is a super trainer, but this is probably, so this line is my favorite all-time running shoe that I use for when I have speed work. Honestly, you can use it for anything, but I right now, because I have those Rebels, use them mostly for speed work, for when I'm going to do either track workouts or do some tempo runs or anything like that. And this is the newest version, but this is the version 4, but the version 3, up until the Rebel, was my top favorite shoe of all time. But that is the Saucony Endorphin Speed. These are the Speed 4s. It's a handsome shoe, but the Speed 3, that was like my first big investment into some running shoes, which started this whole thing. Love the Saucony Endorphin line, especially if you're someone who, number one, they just have such a good balance of responsiveness, stability, the foam in it. This is, what's it called? This is the, I forgot what their foam is called, the PB Run something. But Their foam is wonderful. It's responsive, but it's cushioning, but it's, just firm enough. Absolutely love it. The Saucony Endorphin Speed 4s. I would call it a super trainer, but it's not as super as those other super trainers in terms of this has a nylon plate in it. So it's still pretty flexible, but it does give you enough, just a little bit to help you, propel forward through those faster tempos and everything like that. It's got a pretty roomy toe box. It's got this flare, got a wide base, really help you get grip. I love the rubber on the Saucony shoes. I said those Rebels and even the Super Comps, they don't have much rubber grip. It's just pretty much straight foam. But this, if there's any wet conditions or anything like that, I know I'm not gonna slip. My Endorphin 3s, I still have and still use, are probably at 600 miles right now. And they're just within the last 50 to 75 miles. You probably need to get some new ones, which is why I got these. But absolutely love these. If you are an intermediate runner or someone who can run at a little bit faster pace, where I say you can average a 9-minute or faster pace without dying for 4 or 5 miles. I highly suggest getting the Endorphin Speed line to use as that speed trainer, that speed work trainer. Absolutely love and adore them. The foam in it is wonderful. It's got a medium drop. I believe it's 5 or 6 millimeters. So it really helps. It's got what they call the speed roll technology, which helps your foot naturally roll, which helps keep that cadence nice and smooth. Absolutely love it. But we'll move on to race shoes. So I've got 2 pairs of race shoes here that I've used. And the 2 pairs of race shoes that I have used are the Saucony Endorphin. Like I said, these are the Endorphin line. These are the Endorphin Pros. These are the version 3. The version 4 is out. I just haven't used them. And these are the Brooks Hyperion Elite. These are version 4, the latest ones as well. So out of my race day shoes, I have tried the Alpha Flies, which is the holy grail of racing shoes, which are Nike. I have tried, I said the Brooks, the Hyperion line, the Saucony, the Endorphin line. I haven't tried, I think those are the only ones in terms of race day shoes that I've tried. And so there's a lot out there. Adidas, they're Adidas Audi Pros. I've never tried them, but I've heard wonderful things about them. Let's see, what else? The Puma, I don't even know what the Puma line is called, but I've heard some great things about those. They're just race day shoes. Number one, they're $250. These are the least expensive. I have terrible butterfingers tonight. I don't know what the heck's going on with my fingers here, but these are the least expensive race day shoes that I've ever bought. Are the Saucony Endorphin Pros, or at least the version 3. I'm sure the version 4 probably went up in price. These are $225. But I love these. I've run 1 marathon of these, but I've run half marathons and 5Ks in them. Honestly, they're probably, because I said they're a little bit narrow, so they're I would say better for shorter, depending on personal. I like to use them I when I want to really run fast, I'll wear these, or if I'm racing a 5K or a 10K. I said I've done half marathons in them. Just the same thing with the Endorphin Speed. It's literally the same as the Endorphin Speed, just with a carbon. It's even lighter. And the foam is the supercritical PIBA versus the EVA. And it's got the carbon plate in it, which you can see in there. It's a little bit thicker, a little bit more cushiony, but absolutely love them. So these are the, like I said, version 3. And then the last marathon that I DNF'd on, fun times. I wore these, the Hyperion Elite version 4. They're okay. Like if you need, I would say a little bit, if you need a little bit more support in your race day shoe, I would highly suggest this. They're not as, I would say, responsive. The Brooks foam is not as responsive as, like I say, I would say Saucony or New Balance or especially Nike, because Nike Zoom X is like the holy grail of supercritical Peepa foam. And they're the Brooks, I said, they're a solid shoe. I said they look absolutely great. They feel great. If you like a little bit firmer, I would suggest Brooks. Like I said, their cushion is more like they're focused on making sure your feet don't hurt versus the responsiveness of that cushion, which I said, it's their thing and it works. Just depends on what you're looking for. And, there's, like I said, I did like it for the marathon just because, like I said, the Saucony is a little bit too narrow, not as stable as I would like. I know the version 4 of those, of the Endorphin Speed line or the Endorphin Pro line, is a little bit wider on that foot base, so it's supposed to help with that. But I haven't tried those. So if you like, or if you need something a little bit more stable, that's something that's going to really help keep you planted for those long miles, a marathon, half marathon, the Hyperion Elite, Brooks Hyperion Elite version 4 is a great one. Tried the version 3s, did not like them. I will say the version 4 is like, this is competitive with the other race day shoes. I feel like the Hyperion Elite 3s were not even in the same ballpark as the other shoes, personally. But these are, right there. These are in the race with those other ones. It's just it's in a different lane. But they picked their lane. They said, hey, we're going to do this because everybody else is doing this because we're going to get the people that need this, which, I respect and I enjoy them. And obviously, I bought them and I still have them and use them, so they fit somewhere. But moving on to trail shoes. So trail shoes, like I said, you can go through trail shoes and get all of these different categories. But I just have 2 with me today. So the first is a trail daily trainer. This is just your average trail shoe for that you could wear for just any type of running or anything like that. And that is these are the Nike Pegasus 4. Nike Pegasus 4. These are the Gore-Tex ones, so they're waterproof. And I absolutely love them. I actually got these on sale, I think, from somewhere for like $75-$80. And just because I wanted a trail shoe that was waterproof. And these work, and I was happily surprised because even though it's like a thinner sole, and it's like obviously the trail shoes is going to have that grip on the bottom. It said it's not a very heavy or a very deep lug, but it is great for, if it's slightly slippery or anything like that. Obviously it's got the Gore-Tex too, so it keeps your feet dry. It's got this high collar right here to keep debris out of your shoe. And they just, like I said, number one, Nike, I'm not a big fan of the Nike shoes personally, just for what I like in a shoe, but they, by golly, know how to make a good looking shoe. I mean, that is just fashion right there. But I love the Pegasus trail shoe. Another one that is a good, I would say more of a max cushion trainer. It's actually what I used to race in my first ultra when I did the 50K Bryce Canyon Ultra in Utah. And that is the Ultra Mont Blancs. Ultra is a great trail running shoe. It's like I said, it's the 0 drop. I have found I really like the lower drops when I'm trail running, just because that lower drop is just, it allows your feet and everything to just do so much more with the trail, because it's not just as stable or as uniform as obviously running on pavement. So it allows your body to really do what it needs to do to not die when you're on the trails. But lastly, in the last shoe, so when I did that 50K, sorry, I didn't wear my mic today because I'm moving around so much and I had to charge my phone. So I don't know how the audio is going to turn out, but we're going to go with it. I know you'll hear me, it just might have to do some editing wizardry to make sure it sounds good. But my last ones I have here, these are also one of my favorite running shoes of all time, not just trail shoes, but just shoes in general, and they're a Nike. And I know I said I didn't like Nike. The Nike trail shoes, though, I like those. Nike trail shoes are pretty great. The road shoes, I don't care for them all that much, but that's just personal preference. Like I said, I started the 50K in the Ultras, and then halfway through I switched shoes to these. These are the Nike Ultra Fly. This is their top of the line trail race shoe. There's in the elite shoes for Nike, there's the Alpha Fly, which is the top of the top. There's the Vapor Fly. Let me see. Yeah, Vapor Fly, which is it's probably their most popular race day shoe. And then these are the Ultra Flies, which this is the trail version of a Vapor Fly. Though it's funny because they look nothing like a Vapor Fly. But it's got the Zoom X, like I said, Zoom X foam, which is their super critical PEBA foam. It is the best foam out there, which sucks because they have the best foam, but I just don't like Nike shoes because they don't fit my feet well. Except this shoe, but that's because they made it super wide. Like, look how wide that shoe is. It's as wide as my face, and I got a massive head. So my toes have room, and my feet can breathe. And even what's cool is, because being a trail shoe, they tried so long to put the Zoom X in a trail shoe, but it's just so hard. They have like this almost like, I don't even know, it's almost like fabric coating over the outside of the foam to protect it. And then obviously they have the Vibram sole on the entire bottom. It's got, pretty shallow lugs, and it doesn't help that I also will run on pavement with these because they're great. I just love these shoes in general. So especially like if I'm doing trail to road, I'll wear these. So I've probably worn these lugs down quicker than what it would be if I just ran on the trail. And I know they're really clean, but I wash them. So I do wear these on the trail. But I wore these on the second half because it's got that carbon plate. So, which I didn't want for the first half, but when my legs started to get tired and I was already hurting anyways, like that carbon plate helps just give you, helps propel you forward, helps you keep your feet moving quicker naturally without having to try when you're tired and your legs are tired and they're heavy. But love that. They're expensive. I think they're like $250, $275 or whatever. But absolutely love them. So if you need a race day trail shoe, there's so many out there. Trail shoes, and I just haven't dived into the trail shoes as much as I have the pavement shoes, because even though with the ultras and everything and all the trail running I like to do, I just don't get to run on the trails as much as I get to run on the pavement. And so I just don't have as many opportunities to use or wear out the shoes. So I don't just spend a bunch of big bucks on them as much as I would like to. But I said I highly recommend the Ultras and the Nike trail shoes. I've heard great things about the New Balance trail shoes, and also Solomon trail shoes are another wonderful one. I know Hoka is super popular. I'm not a big Hoka fan because, like I said, they're like the Nike where they don't fit my feet well. I like to have that really wide toe box, and they don't have those, and at least in the ones I've worn. But they are super great starting, especially if you need something to help protect your feet that's cushiony. Hoka's a great brand. I just personally don't wear them. But I said, we're getting on 54 minutes. It's longer than what I wanted to be, but here we are. Because when you're talking about shoes, there is just so much to talk about. So we're going to keep on going next week, talking about all the gear and everything like that. But that is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to running shoes. And I'll talk more about running shoes and just running gear in general throughout the entirety of the life of this podcast, because like I said, there's just always so much more technology. But that just is just the tip of the iceberg, just to dip your toes if you want to start running, or if you just like talking about shoes like I do, just to get your information out there. But just want to encourage y'all to go out, and if you need to go, and if you see all these, you can go to Academy. Academy is probably, if you aren't rolling in the dough, or you don't want to spend a bunch of money, go to Academy. Go buy a pair of go try on a bunch. They have they have Adidas, they have Under Armour. I've never tried an Under Armour running shoe, but there's a pair that I want to get. I just can't buy them right now because I have other things to buy. But I will be adding those soon to try them out. Because I know Under Armour is trying to step up their game, and I love Under Armour just in general, and so I want to give them a benefit of the doubt as they try to focus more on their running stuff. But go to Academy, go to Ross, whatever. Look at the discounts, find a pair, try them on. They feel if you can walk around the store and they feel good. Then who gives a rat's patootie about any of the information I gave you about what you should get, what you shouldn't get? Because like I said, I've tried shoes that on paper should be the perfect shoe for me. Didn't like them. And then I've tried shoes where I'm like, these probably aren't what I'm looking for, and love them. And you never know. And it changes. It can change brand. Like you might be great in one brand and one shoe, but not in the same brand in another shoe. And even versions, like I said, the version 3 was great. Version 4 sucks. You never know. You never know. So just try them, walk around the store, see how they feel. If they feel good, you like the price, buy them. No, it doesn't matter the brand, doesn't matter what it is. I would suggest though, finding a pair that's going to support you and keep you from getting injured. And also is going to ignite your passion. You like wearing them. I remember in high school and college, look good, feel good. You want the cleats, you want the arm sleeves, and you want to wear the tights and the head, all the arm bands and everything like that. Look good, feel good, play good. If you have, you get new stuff, it helps kind of be like, I want to go out and run because I want to wear my new stuff, everything like that. So, invest in yourself, invest in quality products. So that way you keep yourself healthy, you keep yourself good, and helps give you just that little bit of motivation. But love you guys. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of the Fit-ish Dad podcast. I know we've gone long, but I thank you, if you made it to this point, for sticking with it and all this information. We will see you next week.